It's ghoulish. That's the only word that can explain Prince Harry and Meghan Markle sharing a private picture of their so-called private children, Archie and Lily, on their so-called private vigil to lay flowers at Princess Diana's grave for the first time.
Meghan's holiday photo dump this week managed something rare. It turned a walk to Diana's grave into a content moment and recreated one of Diana's most famous photographs almost frame for frame in the very same carousel.
A lot of people believe, and you seem to suggested it, that this was her purposefully cosplaying Princess Diana.
And I think it's manipulative.
A new batch of family photos from Meghan Markle has sparked another round of royal debate. But it wasn't the sunny vacation shots that grabbed the most attention. Instead, viewers quickly focused on two very different images. One connected to Princess Diana's resting place, and another that some royal watchers believe carries a striking resemblance to one of Diana's most recognisable beach photographs.
To describe the acts of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, you two are insane and ghoulish. You two have no respect for Princess Diana's resting place, and also all of us who have to put up with your constant briefings about privacy. And then you post the most intimate photos that we have never seen. Particularly disgusted royal watchers. That is because we know that Prince William's strongly held and deeply passionate view is that this site must remain sacred.
Whether that similarity was intentional is impossible to know, but the timing and presentation were enough to get people talking. The photos appeared as part of a larger Instagram carousel documenting family moments from the summer. Among the images was a shot showing Prince Harry and Meghan's children walking along a tree-lined path reportedly at Althorp, the Spencer family's estate and the place where Diana was laid to rest. One of the children appeared to be carrying flowers, which led observers to believe the family was making a private visit to remember their late grandmother. On its own, that could have been viewed as a quiet family moment. But because the photograph was later shared publicly, critics began questioning why such a personal visit needed to become part of a social media post at all.
The carousel went up on her Instagram 12 photos deep, and two of them did all the work. One showed the children walking a tree-lined avenue at what royal watchers immediately identified as Althorp, Diana's family estate. One child visibly carrying flowers toward what can only be their late grandmother's grave. So a few slides later came a very different image. Meghan on a beach in a dark backless swimsuit, cap on, hand on hip, looking out of the water. So anyone who remembers the famous 1997 photograph of Diana walking a beach in Saint-Tropez, black swimsuit, sunglasses on, alone with her thoughts, did not need a caption to clock what that second photo was doing.
Some argued that a moment involving children visiting their grandmother's resting place should have remained completely private, especially given Harry's long and complicated history with media attention surrounding his family. Then, another photograph in the same collection added a completely different angle to the conversation. Meghan was pictured standing on a beach in a dark, backless swimsuit and cap, facing toward the water with one hand resting on her hip. Some royal commentators immediately compared the pose and overall setting to the famous 1997 photographs of Diana in Saint-Tropez, where she was photographed alone near the water wearing a dark swimsuit. Now, a similar pose does not automatically mean Meghan was deliberately recreating Diana's photograph. Beach pictures naturally share plenty of the same elements, and there has been no confirmation that this was intended as any kind of tribute.
And for the beach photo, calling it a tribute would be generous. Calling it a recreation gets a lot closer to the truth, right down to the pose and the styling.
Still, placing that image in the same carousel as a photograph reportedly connected to Diana's resting place made the comparison much harder for critics to ignore. That is where the bigger controversy started. Meghan and Harry have repeatedly spoken about privacy, media pressure, and the intense public attention surrounding their family. Because of that history, critics saw an uncomfortable contradiction in sharing such an intimate family moment with a massive online audience. Harry himself has previously spoken publicly about how exhausting constant media intrusion can become and why certain parts of family life should remain protected. That makes the current debate more complicated. There is obviously a difference between unwanted press attention and choosing what to share through your own social media account. But critics argue the line becomes blurry when deeply personal family moments are deliberately presented to the public.
Exhausting intrusion into his private life, insisting that some things simply have to stay private. Almost a decade later, it's his own wife deciding exactly which private family moments get an audience and exactly how large that audience gets. So nobody forced this carousel online. Nobody leaked it from a long lash across a hatch. It went up on her own account, under her own name, on her own schedule, which makes the outrage of her privacy defense a much harder sell than it used to be.
Supporters could easily see it another way. Harry and Meghan control their own account, choose the photographs themselves, and can share family memories without photographers chasing them for those images. But for critics, the question isn't whether they have the right to post them. It's why a visit connected to Diana's resting place became part of a polished public carousel in the first place. And with the Diana comparisons already dominating the discussion, these photographs quickly became much more than an ordinary summer update. That privacy debate becomes even more complicated when you look at how these photographs actually reached the public. This wasn't footage captured by photographers waiting outside the estate, and there is no indication that someone secretly obtained the images and released them without permission. The carousel was deliberately published through Meghan Markle's own social media account, meaning the family had control over what appeared, when it appeared, and how those moments were presented. That distinction matters because Prince Harry has spent years criticising unwanted media intrusion into his private life. Of course, choosing to share a photograph is very different from having photographers follow you without permission.
And then this dump on Instagram, when finally it's revealed by people within the mainstream media that life within this marriage ain't happy. And let's be honest, no wonder if you wear Cosy in shoes like that, but that's a whole other story. A lot of people believe, and you seem to suggest it, that this was her purposefully cosplaying Princess Diana. So Stephanie Sidley, for example, writing, Meghan Markle is wearing the same cut swimsuit Princess Diana was famous for. The Royal Grift describing it as absolutely mental, and Meghan's mole saying that it's psycho stalker behavior. Again, Paul, if this were a one-off, you'd probably give the person benefit of the doubt, right? But given this is now like such a trend, I do believe it's purposeful. Do you?
Of course.
Still, critics argue that publicly sharing an intimate family visit connected to Princess Diana makes some of the couple's past privacy. Arguments feel more complicated. There is another detail getting attention as well: Diana's brother, Charles Spencer. Althorp has traditionally been treated as a deeply personal place, particularly the area associated with Diana's resting place. Spencer has long emphasised protecting his sister's memory and keeping that part of the estate away from intrusive media attention. Because of that, some royal watchers question whether the photograph challenged that tradition. There is no solid evidence that Spencer objected to the family taking or sharing the image, however, so claims about what he personally approved should be treated cautiously. Then there is Meghan's beach photograph. The comparison with Diana's 1997 Saint-Tropez images became one of the biggest talking points surrounding the carousel. The dark swimsuit, waterside setting, and similar stance were enough for some observers to describe Meghan's picture as a recreation rather than a simple coincidence.
Through the last, 8-10 years of all the outfits she's copied of Diana's. And, it's actually quite, what's the word? Oedipal and weird. It's almost as if she's trying to remind Harry, I'm mummy. And remember, you married the woman.
I'm still in her perfume.
Yes, exactly. I'm the woman that your mother sent you to marry. I'm embodying her spirit. It's all just
so wrong.
kind of.
But that's still interpretation, not proof. Meghan has not publicly confirmed that she was attempting to recreate Diana's photograph, and similar beach poses aren't exactly unusual. What made the comparison stand out was the context. A photograph connected to Diana appeared in the same collection, so viewers were already thinking about Harry's late mother when they reached Meghan's beach shot. While that debate was still unfolding, another story involving Prince Harry started circulating online, and this one needs an especially large warning label. Unverified claims began suggesting that Harry had supposedly become close to another woman somewhere around Montecito, and that Meghan allegedly discovered messages on his phone.
Word going around from people claiming inside knowledge is that Harry has met someone new based somewhere near Montecito, and that Meghan found out after discovering messages on his phone and is said to be livid about it.
Meghan is livid. Harry has met someone who is his age, with whom he is in love, and who is in love with him.
Some versions of the story went even further, claiming she was furious after finding out. At this point, however, there is no reliable public evidence confirming those allegations. Without named sources, direct evidence, or confirmation from the people involved, this remains rumour rather than established fact. What makes the story noteworthy isn't necessarily the claim itself, but the timing. Harry had recently appeared on a podcast with a retired England rugby player, recorded around his UK visit and connected to promotion for the upcoming Invictus Games. The appearance showed a much more casual side of Harry than audiences usually see. He joked about his royal identity, discussed parts of his everyday grooming routine, and leaned into relaxed locker room-style humour throughout the conversation. That approach received mixed reactions. Some listeners enjoyed seeing Harry speaking more casually without the usual royal formality, while others thought certain moments came across awkwardly. Either way, the podcast put Harry's personality back under the microscope, and almost immediately afterward, a far more dramatic rumour about his private life began circulating online. The timing of the latest Prince Harry rumour is arguably more interesting than the rumour itself.
Girl, woman, girlfriend, friend, however you want to put it, and I'm putting it like this for legal reasons, resides, and I'm not going to say if it's actually in Montecito or near Montecito, but it's in the environs. People have seen them together. Oh dear, my goodness, Harry's growing. Is it a backbone? Or, my goodness, maybe he's not going to be able to juggle those balls outside of windows anymore, because maybe they're going to be attached instead of detached. That would be progress, wouldn't it?
Not long after his podcast appearance triggered mixed reactions online, a completely different narrative suddenly began circulating, one suggesting Harry may have developed a romantic connection outside his marriage. There is still no reliable evidence confirming that claim, but its arrival gave royal commentators something much more dramatic to discuss than an awkward podcast appearance. That doesn't mean anyone deliberately planted the story. There is currently no proof connecting Harry, Meghan, their representatives, or anyone around them to its circulation. Still, from a publicity perspective, the timing couldn't have been more convenient. 1 week, the conversation is about Harry's jokes, grooming comments, and casual behaviour. Shortly afterward, attention shifts toward an explosive rumour about his private life. For now, neither Meghan's representatives nor Harry's side has publicly confirmed the allegations. The claims appear to depend largely on unnamed sources, making it impossible to know whether there is anything substantial behind them. Anonymous sourcing doesn't automatically make a story false, but without supporting evidence, this one belongs firmly in the speculation category. What is revealing, however, is how quickly the rumour gained attention. Years of public scrutiny around Harry and Meghan have created an environment where almost any suggestion of tension between them can become a headline.
So I am not saying anybody planted this. I'm saying if I were advising Team Sussexes the morning after that podcast dropped, this is roughly the story I'd suggest leaking next. So whatever the truth of it, Meghan's camp has said nothing. Harry's side has said nothing either. And the only people talking are sources nobody can verify or trace back to anyone real. So that is usually a sign a story is either invented outright or being carefully managed by somebody who very much wants it circulating. Either way, the fact that this particular rumor found an instant eager audience says plenty about where the public sits on that marriage.
Separate appearances, individual projects, travel schedules, or even changes in body language have repeatedly been interpreted as signs of trouble, sometimes without much evidence behind those conclusions. And while that speculation continued, another royal argument was already gaining momentum, this time involving King Charles and his relationship with Harry. Reports surrounding a private meeting at Highgrove have led some commentators to claim Charles may have given his son another opportunity to repair their strained relationship. Other observers took the opposite view, arguing that agreeing to meet Harry at all showed the king was becoming too accommodating after years of family tension and public disputes. But that interpretation depends heavily on assuming the meeting itself represented a victory for Harry. Based on what has publicly emerged, there is no clear reason to make that leap. The reported conversation was private. There was no celebratory palace announcement afterward, and no official photographs were released presenting the meeting as some grand royal reconciliation. Some reports have characterised the conversation as serious and suggested Charles may have established firm expectations for what happens next. Those details remain based on reporting rather than a full official account, so exactly what was said behind closed doors is unknown.
Sped Prince Harry, Meghan Markle and the two children to see their grandfather. We're not quite sure how long it lasted. Some people are saying an hour, some are saying more. The fallout from it has been we're all sitting waiting for it to be leaked. Nothing so far. Apparently William was appalled. The following day, Harry looked like the cat that got the cream, because you and I both know that the Sussex brand's dead now, isn't it? Anywhere in the world, unless they can actually prove to have some link still with the very family they spend their entire life slagging off.
That distinction changes the entire picture. A father agreeing to speak privately with his son doesn't automatically mean years of disagreement have disappeared. It could just as easily mean Charles was willing to hear Harry out while making his own position clear. In fact, treating every private conversation as proof that Charles has surrendered gives Harry and Meghan more of a public relations victory than the meeting itself ever could. If there were no restored royal role, no major public announcement, and no visible change in palace policy, then describing the encounter as a dramatic royal comeback gets ahead of what is actually known.
Meghan Markle felt humiliated on Prince Harry's most recent UK trip, and that the trip turned into a nightmare, forcing Markle and her children to return home to California earlier than they had hoped.
Nullifies her claims, Harry's claims that they can't possibly return to the United Kingdom without royal security because the press won't leave them alone.
The meeting may ultimately prove important, but simply opening the door for a conversation is very different from handing Harry and Meghan the keys to everything they once had. What actually came out of that reported meeting? Publicly, almost nothing, and that is exactly why claims of some dramatic royal breakthrough deserve caution. There was no official portrait of Prince Harry with King Charles, no palace statement announcing a reconciliation, and no public ceremony designed to show that everything had suddenly been repaired. Instead, the encounter was reportedly handled privately, with very little information reaching the public. That matters because a private conversation between a father and his son is not automatically the same thing as the monarchy changing its position. Charles can still care about Harry personally, while remaining cautious about everything that has happened over the past several years. Those two things can exist at the same time.
I don't think William was very happy. I don't think the Queen was very happy, but I'll tell you why I think it's clever. And I thought about this overnight because I don't know much else to do because I don't sleep. His son has been emotionally blackmailing him and wants to deal and titles before the king passes. That's me being very straight and very honest with everybody, because there isn't a chance in hell that William will ever thaw. That's my opinion. So the king was under that sort of pressure, didn't want to be criticised for not seeing his grandchildren.
Especially when family relationships and institutional responsibilities are mixed together. Some commentators have suggested that simply agreeing to the meeting showed Charles was becoming softer toward Harry and Meghan. Others have interpreted it as the beginning of a possible reconciliation, but based on what is publicly known, neither conclusion has been confirmed. If anything, the lack of photographs, announcements, or visible concessions suggests the meeting was kept deliberately contained, and that creates a strange contradiction in some of the online reaction. For years, parts of the royal commentary world have argued that Buckingham Palace would maintain firm boundaries after Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties and publicly criticised members of the family. Now, some of those same voices are treating one private meeting as though those boundaries suddenly disappeared. But what actually changed afterward?
Yeah, this is the first time that the King has actually met his granddaughter and grandson from Prince Harry's side of the family since the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee all the way back in June 2022. And if you were to ask me on Monday afternoon whether I thought this meeting would take place, I would have told you absolutely no chance.
It's been reported that Markle's frustrations came from the couple not receiving taxpayer-funded security and not being allowed to stay at Buckingham Palace.
As far as the public can see, there was no restored royal role, no announcement of new duties, and no major palace event suddenly featuring Harry and Meghan again. There was also no official indication that previous disagreements had been resolved. Whatever Charles and Harry discussed remains largely between them, and reports about specific warnings or conditions should still be treated as reporting rather than confirmed palace policy. That is why describing the meeting as a major victory for either side feels premature. A father deciding to speak with his son is one thing. The King publicly changing the monarchy's relationship with Harry and Meghan would be something much bigger and much harder to miss. The same pattern has followed several stories surrounding the Sussexes this week.
Now, on a personal note, Grant, I'm happy that the King was able to spend time with his grandchildren. But do you think the Sussexes will be disappointed that they did not get a photograph of this meeting, given that it would enhance their brand? The Sussexes, with their children, were able to go to Highgrove. They flew into the country. They go to Highgrove, perhaps other parts of the UK as well, and then they go back home. Does it make a mockery of their demands for 24/7 royal security, given that that was not provided?
Meghan's summer carousel included what appeared to be a deeply personal family visit, yet its public release created a debate about privacy and presentation. Her beach photograph triggered comparisons with Princess Diana, despite there being no confirmation that Meghan intended to recreate Diana's famous image. Then an unsupported rumour about Harry's private life appeared and quickly spread, despite the lack of reliable evidence behind it. Now, a private father-son conversation is being interpreted by some as a major shift in royal relations, even though there has been no public announcement showing that such a shift actually happened. That doesn't mean none of these developments matter. The Highgrove meeting could eventually become an important step in Harry's relationship with his father. Meghan's photographs may simply represent moments she wanted to share with followers.
That she didn't exactly get what she wants, and she certainly didn't win. A lot of us were frightened that Meghan would be able to manipulate the King, but I think in this instant, nothing has changed. They met for an hour and a half, they had tea, they talked about stuff that had no big relevance, small talk. There's no one better than the royal family for making chit-chat. If ever you've been around the royals, they say nothing. It's like cotton candy. They just talk and they don't say anything. And so he can sit there for an hour and a half and say absolutely nothing.
For the most part, he was rejected. And the nightmare wasn't just the trip. It was discovering that the privilege of royalty, doesn't automatically survive after you quit your job.
And the rumours surrounding Harry could disappear as quickly as they arrived. But right now, the confirmed developments are far less dramatic than many of the headlines surrounding them. The real story is the distance between what can actually be established and the much bigger narratives being built around those details. After everything that unfolded this week, the biggest question may not be whether every rumour or interpretation is true, but why these stories gain so much attention in the first place. Meghan Markle's photo carousel started as a glimpse into family life, yet it quickly became a debate over privacy, Princess Diana's legacy, and whether certain personal moments should ever become public content. The comparison between Meghan's beach photograph and Diana's famous Saint-Tropez images added another layer. Some observers saw an obvious resemblance, while others could easily argue that a dark swimsuit and a beach pose aren't enough to prove anything intentional. Without Meghan explaining the photograph herself, nobody outside her circle can know what she had in mind. And that's exactly where commentary can turn into speculation fast. Then came the claims surrounding Prince Harry's personal life. Those allegations remain unverified, with no solid public evidence establishing that Harry has another romantic interest, or that Meghan discovered anything on his phone. What is clear is how quickly the story travelled. Harry and Meghan's marriage has been analysed so heavily that even an unsupported claim can trigger another wave of headlines and theories. And finally, there is King Charles. A private conversation between Charles and Harry may be meaningful on a personal level, but it doesn't automatically signal a royal comeback or a major institutional change. Unless something concrete follows, an official announcement, a public appearance, or another clear development, the safest conclusion is that father and son reportedly met, while the wider relationship remains complicated. So where do you land on all of this? Was Meghan's family carousel simply a collection of meaningful summer memories? Or do you understand why the Diana-related photographs caused such a strong reaction? Do you think the rumours around Harry are just another example of speculation running wild? Or is there something about their sudden timing that caught your attention? And when it comes to Charles meeting Harry, could this be the beginning of a genuine reconciliation? Or was it simply a private family conversation being turned into something much bigger? Share your take in the comments, because there are plenty of different ways to read this situation. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button, share the video with someone who follows celebrity and royal drama, and subscribe for more stories like this. And don't leave just yet. The next video appearing on your screen has even more celebrity drama waiting for you, so click it and keep watching. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.